So meeting for September 18th, 2023, and I ask you all to rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Beck, would you call roll?
DeMore, present. Shields,
Here.
Wagner,
Here.
Walker, present. Murphy.
Present. Working on old business right now, and that's second reading and possible adoption of a proposed ordinance that would amend the city of Petoskey zoning map to rezone 1420 Standish Avenue to a PUD, which is a planned unit development. I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Strable. God, I knew. That was an old one. I must apologize to you. I can feel the love. I turn it over to Shane Horn. Thank you, Mayor. I could have said rally or Court Howard. Okay.
John Eichelangeli is on our Zoom platform. He's has a little bit of a cold, so he wasn't able to join us in person. John, if you can hear me, if you want to run through your memo and provide that overview for City Council, that would be appreciated.
Yes, I can. Thank you very much, City Manager Shane Horn, Mayor and City Council. The Planning Commission did meet at a special meeting on September 6th. And the sole purpose of the meeting was to review the site plan, the full site plan in detail. And over the 2-hour plus meeting, the Planning Commission did a very thorough review of the program and the plan. And they approved the plan with 11 conditions that are listed in your memo. Based on a discussion with the applicant's project manager engineer, Wayne Seeger, their team is now working on resolving all of the 11 conditions. They agreed to them. The one that probably has the longest lead time that everybody is concerned about is number 3, which is the letter from Eagle that addresses their concerns relative to the storm water. But all of the other issues that have been identified in the site plan review and the conditions approved by the Planning Commission are pretty minimal compared to the letter from Eagle that was dated on July 28th. So that's really the long lead item, something that the city nor the applicant has any control over is the permit review by Eagle relative to the stormwater system. And because of the condition of the property, which we all know is contaminated, the stormwater system is a closed system, which does not allow any of the surface runoff to penetrate the groundwater. So it's going to be an engineered system, and it's going to be subject to Eagle review and permit. So that's the longest lead item, but all of the other 10 conditions that were recommended by the Planning Commission, the project manager engineer says they all agree to them, and they're in the process of revising the plans accordingly for a signature between the applicant and the Planning Commission chair. So do you have any questions?
I have one, and that's the owners, the current owners, how do they weigh in on this? And I think you've addressed that, but how have we addressed that, Shane?
Yeah, I handed out, this is a little unique. Well, it's not really unique, but it's a little bit different just because the current developer is working under an LOI, a letter of intent. So they don't physically own the structure, they don't own the building, or they don't own the parcel. So we have added language based on Jim's guidance based on guidance from the attorney from Great Lakes Capital and the attorney from the Dow, from the Michigan Maple Block Company. Really and I'll just kind of read it, if you will, for the rezoning, and it goes similar to the other two resolutions as well. So essentially, it's effective on the date of recording in the office of the Emmett County, Michigan Register of Deeds, evidencing the transfer of the property from Michigan Maple Block Company to Maple Block Flats LLC or its assigns. However, should this transfer fail to occur on or before March 1st, 2024, this resolution is automatically rescinded and shall be of no further force or effect. So based on guidance from our city attorney, he thought we needed to have some sunset date in this, and you'll see that, going forward into the other two resolutions as well. So that's where the current owner has provided feedback through her legal counsel to make sure that, if this property doesn't move forward from a transfer, that the rezoning would not continue.
Mr. Shields, you had a question.
More of a comment, Mayor. Thank you. First, I want to thank the Planning Commission for their very thorough and thoughtful review of this PUD request. That's very helpful, and I lean on the Planning Commission's diligence. So thank you, Planning Commission. And I also want to thank Ms. McGlashan and the Tippecanoe Watershed Council for their review and presentation and comments they submitted to the Planning Commission on the plan for the site. I want to emphasize some of what Ms. McGlashan and Tippecanoe said in that meeting. I unfortunately feel like I tuned into the Planning Commission meeting and not pointing fingers at anything, but the overall tone I was reading with the Tippecanoe Watershed Council was that thanks, but we already have Eagles review. And I want to make comment that I took a couple of notes of some of the three members from Eagle who were there that night, and they said that they are making sure to take care of the worst of the worst, and that their assessment is risk-based and to make sure that it's not as bad as something else. So worst of the worst, not as bad. I'm glad we're meeting that standard. Tip and Nick came here to say let's do excellence in our water quality. And so I want to applaud Tip and Nick, and I'm going to say how grateful we should be to have this organization and their expertise right here based in our community. So I hope that the city will take those concerns and recommendations from Tip and Nick at heart. In my own analysis, do not think that any concerns rose to the level of not accepting this plan. And I support the PUD. I merely want to emphasize and thank Tip and Nick for the recommendations and hope that we'll take them seriously. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak, council? Mr. Moore.
I'd like to echo Derek's comments to the Planning Commission. I know some of the members are here tonight. I realize this was a long slog for you guys, and I genuinely appreciate your efforts. That said, given the current bargaining posture relative to this development, I don't believe that the process we are following is beneficial to the city's interests. Specifically, we continue to move forward with prioritizing developer incentives, the developer's capital stack, and the developer's timeline. Now, we have a request for a zoning change with still no implementation agreement in place with the developer. To be clear, the ultimate question for me is, will the city be incentivizing affordable, emphasis on affordable housing for a duration of time that warrants the use of public funding? We do not currently have that information. If and when the city and the developer reach consensus on the AMI commitment, that's the average median income commitment, and duration for this development, along with how it will be funded and for what duration, and that is incorporated in an implementation agreement. I'm prepared to review that agreement and decide whether or not I will support this development going forward. I'm pleased to see that our attorney is here tonight, because I also would like to speak to the resolution that's before us. As our planner indicated this evening, the Planning Commission established 11 carefully considered conditions for approval of the final site plan. Those items are mentioned in the resolution this evening, but not as conditions precedent to moving forward with the PUD. If our resolution is not conditional, the conditions are not required. For those that are inclined to move forward with the resolution, I would suggest that it be amended to make clear that the proposed zoning is conditional, subject to the fulfillment of the 11 conditions set forth by the Planning Commission. And for that, I would reference Part 6 of Section 2503 of the Petoskey Zoning Code, which provides for conditional approval by the Planning Commission and approval by council subject to the fulfillment of those conditions. Thank you.
Council, anything? Mr. Wagner.
I'd appreciate comment on that last piece. And Tina, thank you, by the way. I want to make sure to thank you for the thorough job you continue to do on this. My question is twofold, I guess, is this truly conditional? Do we need to make that change to the resolution? And a lot of the things that we've been talking about for the last several weeks on this, we're pushing forward. So I feel like the developer can't put their entire plan together until these things happen as part of that. And ultimately we'll have something to approve, but
You're looking at me.
yes.
So
Mr. Murray, city attorney, please.
clearly, I got a call from the owner's attorney who made it very clear and sent a letter confirming at least the first condition that the rezoning would be subject to the closing of the property and the transfer of title. And that's an absolute condition. We don't have the authority from the owner to rezone without that language. That was probably part of your question, correct?
And does the resolution need to state?
And the resolution was revised a couple times in the new one. So to make sure, should you go that route, you adopt the correct version. And Shane did circulate.
It does call out 11, yes.
Did circulate one that has that language in there. It's at the end of the paragraph. And yes, that one is a requirement from the owner. Did you want me to address Tina's question?
Would you address Tina's question of addressing or installing in the agreement?
In the resolution, the conditions, yeah. And that's catching me a little off guard because I didn't participate in the planning commission process. And so maybe John can weigh in on that, but because our zoning is a little unique with a PUD. I mean, it just rezone, it's a rezoning, it's not an overlay district. I'm certainly not suggesting those conditions are waived, if that's your question. I mean, if they're conditions, they're conditions. Certainly wouldn't hurt. I mean, if that's what council wants and that's what the planning commission made it subject to, it's certainly not going to hurt to incorporate them by reference.
I think they should be included by reference.
I don't know if I have a copy of, I think I do. In the package. I'm really reading the 11 points, but I know it's not in the proposed resolution, but you could incorporate those. Yeah. I mean, it's like the classic leave no stone unturned. You know, it's sometimes you turn a few extra over that you didn't intend to, but
Council, are you okay with including those in this agreement piece that city attorney is discussing?
it's in your packet.
Right.
It's on page 4 for the second reading.
Are you okay with including that in the agreement as mentioned in the resolution? Mr. Moore.
If I could perhaps suggest something easy in the second paragraph for Jim's consideration,
Okay,
where it reads, whereas at the September 6th special meeting of the Planning Commission, the final site plan for the property was unanimously approved with 11 conditions, which are incorporated herein by.
Yeah, and that would probably be an easy way to solve that problem.
there you go.
But it would be nice to,
Spell them out.
no, you don't have to spell them out. You can incorporate them by reference, but then in the action, that's a recital, but then in the actual resolution. You could say hereby approves the rezone, and we can call them the conditions. Just put a parenthesis around the 11 conditions and call them the conditions.
Okay,
And
Council,
then,
are you okay with that?
and then simply say approves the rezoning application subject to the conditions. In the actual resolution.
Are you good with that, Council? Yes, I see everybody shaking their head, yes.
Yeah.
Tina, you brought it up, are you okay?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you. Appreciate it.
So John Evangeline has a comment
Uh-huh,
whenever you're ready.
we're ready, John?
Now, Mayor, thank you. I think I would agree with the city attorney. My suggestion would be that you just add the clause into the motion or the resolution that the 11 conditions that are stated in the agenda memo dated September 18th, 2023, prepared on September 9th, 2023, which contains all the 11 conditions.
We're good. The reason I call out people's names, I have sat at home trying to watch the planning commission the last 2-3 meetings. I don't know who the heck speaks. I don't know if it's male or female. Our system is so poor. So when I call on somebody to speak, it helps Sarah here, but it also helps the people watching online, because otherwise you have no clue who's talking because you can't see lips move or anything. So, okay. Anything else on this, Shane?
Mayor, I have a question.
So we're looking at possible
I have a question.
motion?
No, I don't have a motion. I have a question about the time frame.
Yes,
So in this agreement, there is a proposal for a 6-month. Is that very common with PUDs to have a timeline of a 6-month period, or is that just something that was arbitrarily suggested as a March 2024 deadline?
You want me to address that?
please.
I just thought Ace.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought a sunset was appropriate, but I didn't pick the date. I threw the concept out and I think it was agreed to by the developers team. Rather than me just arbitrarily, that's not my job. So I certainly support the concept. So I believe, and the developer can correct me if I'm wrong if they're on, but that was mutually agreeable. And I think to Shane, it was agreeable and it seemed reasonable to me as well, but that's how where the date was picked.
My biggest concern is you're in agreement and Shane's in agreement with this.
Yes.
Okay, then you're good, counsel.
Are you looking?
John, another comment, city planner?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. John Echoangeli, planning consultant for the city. I would agree with the attorney. If the PUD in Petoskey was an overlay, typically the overlays always have a 6-month to 1-year expiration provision. In the event that the developer does not proceed with the PUD, then they automatically expire. So I think what the city attorney has recommended is certainly appropriate.
Thank you, city planner. Any other discussion?
Are you looking for a motion, Mayor?
I'm looking for a motion.
I'll try the motion. I'll make a motion to adopt the proposed ordinance with the amendments that we discussed, that the conditions be subject to the dated agenda that described the 11 conditions from the planning commission meeting. And that would amend the city of Petoskey zoning map to rezone 1420 Standish Avenue to a PUD.
Do I have a second? A support. I have a motion from Mr. Shields and a second from Mr. Wagner. No city council comments at this point. There being none, I go to the public. If you wish to make a comment regarding this issue, please step up to the mic, give us your full name, your full address. You'll have 3 to 5 minutes to address council. Is there anybody in the audience or online that wishes to speak to council about this motion?
There is online, so.
Okay, so this gentleman is live right here.
Just 1 second. Yes, sir. Full name, full address.
My name is Johnny Pinuve. I'm a resident of Grand Rapids, but I am an attorney at Warner Norcross and Judd, and we represent Michigan Maple Block Company, the owner of the property currently. And I just have a very, very small comment with regard to the language of the resolution. And we sent this over previously, and thanks for taking our considerations into account here. The condition on the resolution says that it will be effective on the recording in the office of Emmett County, Michigan Register of Deeds, but it doesn't say the recording of what. So our only comment would be that we would be clear in there that it will be effective on the recording of a deed to the developer. So that way it's clear that what needs to be recorded would be the deed that actually transfers title to the developer. That's our only comment there.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Murray,
Our resolution got played with about 3 or 4 times, so that was probably an oversight. That's a reasonable, probably assumed and implied anyway. To add that.
what you wanted in there.
Sure, it makes sense.
I'm going to go back to the motion by Mr. Shields and ask if you are okay with the amendment to that motion.
Please amend the motion as described.
Mr. Wagner? Agreed. Seconded, agreed as well. So we have that change. Anyone else in public wish to speak to city council at this time? Lady in the back. Gentleman in the back, come on down. Place is right.
Hi, I'm Charlie Wilmot, 1128 Valley View Avenue, Petoskey, Michigan. As you all know, I'm a member of the Planning Commission, but I'm not here to speak on behalf of the Planning Commission, nor with regard to the PUD zoning issue in general, but more specifically with my personal taxpayer concerns about the cost to the city of the proposed. Well, this has to do with moving forward with these resolutions. So I like the development site plan very much. I like the alternative use of the property. I think it will be a great value to the city. What I dislike is I dislike the price tag. And I'd like you to keep that in mind as you're moving these resolutions forward, because it's a key element here. Depending on the estimates that you want to look at and believe, between the cash, the city guarantees, the tax abatements and the tax increment financing, we're talking somewhere in the tune of $9 to $12 million over 30 years. That ask, in my opinion, is outrageous for a city of 6,000 people. And it is unacceptable in terms of moving the project forward. And that until we understand more about specifically what that ask is, how much it's going to cost the city taxpayer, and get an understanding from the city taxpayers that that's the methodology that they wish to pursue, I would recommend caution in proceeding with these resolutions and any other forward movement with the development of this project. That having been said, in addition to the $9 to $12 million, in particular, this is not affordable or workplace housing, as Councilwoman DeMoore said earlier. This is a private development. It's only a small fraction of it is going to be dedicated to less than 100% AMI. For the most part, this is going to be market pricing or potentially above market pricing, which doesn't address the priority needs that we have in this community. Housing of all kinds is great. Water will find its own level. I support all of the initiatives with regard to housing. I object to the price tag. But particularly for a development that will only have a modest number of affordable housing issues attached to it for a very limited 12-year period, while the taxpayers will be responsible for the repayment of this money over a 30-year period. Third, I'm kind of stuck in the injustice of the current owners receiving a large sum of money for the sale of this property at taxpayer expense after 100 years of sustained contamination of this precious site along the Bear River. It offends me. I don't mean to be naive, but it offends me. The taxpayers will be paying that sale price to these owners, and once that deed is signed, they will be able to walk away with no financial or legal responsibility to the cleanup of the contamination that they caused. It offends me, and I think we need to take a pause and think about that before we continue to move this project forward. So based on these concerns, I would recommend 3 things before moving forward with these resolutions. Number 1, immediately and urgently request that Eagle perform shoreline sediment testing for possible leaching of contaminants into the Bear River. As long as those contaminants are contained, the owner of the responsibility has no responsibility to clean it up. But if those contaminants are leaching, and we don't know that because no testing has been done along the shoreline, if those contaminants are leaching, they're responsible for the cleanup. And I would urge you to get those results before moving this further, because you will be giving, you will be letting go of the ability to hold the current owners responsible, and in fact, rewarding them for the sale of this property. Number 2, conduct frequent and regular inspections of the building and property in their current form to ensure that they are maintained in accordance with the International Maintenance Code and does not adversely affect the public health or safety of our community. Should the property fall into further disrepair and be categorized as an urban blight or an attractive nuisance, the city might consider condemning the property and taking possession. Number 3, consider engaging specialized legal counsel with environmental contamination expertise to provide guidance and advice on this matter. I hope that you'll take that into consideration, and I thank you for your time.
Thanks very much. Thank you, Mr. Wilmot. I know you're on the planning commission, you guys have spent a lot of time on this site. Anyone else wish to address the public? From the public to city council, come in, please.
Carla Buck, should I move that? Carla Buckmaster, 3860 Sheldon Drive, Petoskey, Michigan. I want to preface my remarks that I do support the building of housing in general, much as the previous gentleman said, and everything he had to say, I think, was wonderful. But I do question the financing of some of it. I just hope that the council will consider my comments formed into questions which are not expected for you to answer, but for your thinking in making your decisions going forward. I appreciated Council Member DeMoore's comments at a previous meeting, as well as tonight. I did not know she was going to talk about almost some of the same stuff as she did before, but I appreciated the comments before, asking just what the developer is giving the city, with the city giving so much to the developer. When my husband and I decided to build our home, we saved our money, borrowed money from the bank until we could afford the house we wanted. We didn't wait around trying to gain money from our friends and relatives. If a developer truly wants to build a development, follow the laws, use your own or borrowed money, build it, and quit waiting around to draw money out of the public. That aside, number 1, if the project is going to be built in phases, how does that affect the application for 102 qualified below average medium income residential units of the total 204 units to be built. How will those 102 units be figured? Will the 102 units be the very first 102 that are built, or will the 102 units be the last units that are built? Number two, once the developer fulfills the 102 workforce priced units, what level income renter will have the next options to rent? Would lower income renters still have first option for a unit, or a lower income no longer considered? And at the end of 12 years or 30 years, whatever the basis was, are the 102 units no longer income based? Number three, what happens if a renter qualifies for the low income when he goes into a unit, but then perhaps his income grows to exceed the AMI? Do they get kicked out of that unit, or what happens? Number four, I find it outlandish that all floors of the buildings will not be ADA compliant, having 3 floors and no elevators. Imagine renting a 3rd floor apartment and you can manage the steps yourself, but you have a relative or friend who cannot visit you because no elevator is available. Yes, I've been told the upper 2 levels legally do not have to be ADA compliant, but why not build it entirely ADA in the beginning? Number 5, tax abatements. While school operating funds are not affected, I am dismayed that a voter millage supporting the school's sinking fund will be taken for this housing project, and it appears that amount of tax is projected at $1 million over their set number of years, the length of capturing that tax. I think it is shameful that voters okayed that millage for the school facilities, and now it is being redirected, no matter how great the housing need. That was not what the voters voted to pay those taxes for. Number 6, why do the developers plan to remove the existing city walk along Standish Avenue with hopes of establishing a 10-foot wide bike trail? What investment will developers put into this? Or how will that trail be funded? City obligation? Number 7, are the figures always accurate? I saw that the developer was going for $4+ million for infrastructure in the brownfield proposal. What does that include? I've learned that existing sewer lines there presently have adequate flow for the proposed 200 units. So is the developer expecting the public to pay for all the on-property sewer hookups? Or what does that infrastructure include? Thank you.
Anyone else? Or
Gordon Borland, 121 West Lake Street. For the people who might not be familiar with planning and zoning and stuff, could we have just a simple explanation of what a PUD is? And my understanding is the city gets something out of that. I'm not aware of what that is. So could we have just a simple explanation of what that involves?
John's probably,
I didn't think you, I didn't know if he was. John, city planner, would you please give us the definition of a PUD? As well as identify benefits to the capacity on a PUD, which I know is part of the requirements.
Yes, I can. Planned unit development in Petoskey is a zoning district, which is set up primarily to provide the opportunity for a mixed use development. And in this case, the Maple Block project has apartments, and it also has a commercial outlot that's proposed for either a retail, professional office, or restaurant use to be determined at a later date. It also allows the developer to propose different dimensional requirements such as height, setbacks, greater open space, and create and also introduce into the development some innovative design requirements that do not necessarily are in the current zoning code. So in this project, which is a redevelopment project of an industrial use, the PUD is actually a very good tool in order to redevelop this project. It also allows for the mitigation of the property, and also allows for the preservation and protection of the Bear River. So the PUD is a really interesting and applicable tool when you're trying to redevelop a very interesting piece of property such as the Maple Block. So I can see why the developers wanted to use it. The code allows it, and they've been able to incorporate some nice features for the community as well into the project. So that's what the PUD is. It's planned unit development. It's primarily to allow a greater level of innovation and creativity into the development of a piece of property than what is currently would be used under a traditional zoning district.
Did you identify, you mentioned you didn't list or explain benefits, amenities to the public.
Well, one of the things that the project includes is that they're going to remove the standard sidewalk along Standish Avenue. They're going to replace it with a 10-foot shared pathway on their property, and they're providing the city with an easement, and they're going to build it at their cost. And the easement is going to be for public use for residents, not only of the project, but the neighborhood, to either walk or use their bikes to get down to Riverbend Park. They're also providing at the very end of the project an area for a public easement for a potential pedestrian bridge, which would connect the project and the neighborhood over to the park, so that residents and neighbors do not have to use the vehicular bridge to get over to the park on the other side of the river. They're maintaining kind of a riparian buffer along the Bear River, so they're not going to be constructing along it. They're going to keep it as natural as possible. And then in addition, which was something that was innovative, that was proposed by the Department of Public Works and Public Safety, in order to provide adequate public safety and fire access behind the buildings, they're also proposing another 10-foot shared pathway that would allow not only residents of the apartments to be able to walk along the Bear River and experience that, but it's also going to be built in such a way that a fire apparatus or emergency vehicles can use it. These type of attributes into a project are not normally found in a traditional zoning district, and that's the benefit of using a PUD, because it allows both the developer and the community the opportunity to negotiate on certain amenities and features that would not necessarily be reviewed or thought about in a traditional zoning district.
Is it, I guess you should identify the source that's going to pay for that 10-foot piece, as well as the what's it cost? It's from taxes collected from that place if it's built. Is that correct?
It's going to be as part of the developer responsibility is to put in those improvements. To some degree, they will be financed in part by the public financing that goes into the project. But the bottom line is that the council needs to understand, in order to provide for affordable housing in today's market, there has to be an infusion of public money into the project to reduce the gap, in order for the developer then to rent the units to people that make less than 120% of the median income, the area median income, which is referred to as the AMI. That's the only way that it's being able to be achieved. A developer cannot fund a project with equity and capital costs and then turn around and rent 50% of the units below market because the project would never be sustainable financially. So there has to be an infusion of money from the Brownfield Authority, for example, from MEDC and from MISTA, which is common across the state in order to make these projects work for the community.
Is it true that after 12 years, however, they can charge whatever they want for rent?
Yeah, at some point in time, the project would be able to charge a market rate. But the bottom line is that there are probably in the future, there are going to be other projects in the city or in the surrounding townships that are going to use the same model in order to provide affordable housing.
Okay. Any other questions, council? Ms. Demore.
I just have a follow-up comment to Mr. Wilmot. I couldn't agree more about the urgent need for the Eagle sediment testing. I think that's part of the due diligence of the city that should be undertaken before we move forward with this. My interpretation of the Watershed Council letter and presentation was just that should be accomplished. And I don't know, Derek, if that's what you were referencing as well. But I certainly support us moving forward with that with all urgency as part of the due diligence of the city. Thank you.
Mr. Horn, what is the length of study on that at this point?
I'm not following your question, Mayor. I'm sorry.
Has Eagle, what has Eagle done or and what agencies in the state have studied or invested in time into looking at the sediments going into the river at this point?
To my knowledge, there's been no testing up until this point. I have petitioned Eagle to schedule the testing based on their presentation to the Planning Commission. So I have petitioned Eagle to start collecting the samples to get a baseline. So it's just based on their schedule when that can occur.
Will that happen this fall?
I would imagine it will happen fairly soon, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Shields?
Thanks, Mayor. I want to comment again on that. I think I agree. Yes, I think this is great. Thanks, Manager Horn, for getting that going. And I agree. I think that it should be a priority. I don't know. We'll see as the conversation continues tonight. I don't know if anything on our agenda tonight should be delayed because of that or needs to be delayed because of that. I think they can be concurrent, but I'll wait and see as we go.
I agree, Mr. Shields. Any other comment? Public, we're at the public making comments. Is there anyone else wishes to address council at this point? There being none, I go to Sarah Beck, our clerk, for roll.
Shields,
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Demore,
For reasons stated on the record, nay.
Walker. No. Murphy.
Yes. Next is the receipt of comments concerning the application for a residential housing exemption certificate for the Maple Block Flat project at 1420 Standish Avenue, and I turn it over to City Manager Horn.
Thank you, Mayor. We have sent letters out to all the taxing jurisdictions as required for this public hearing this evening. So essentially, this residential housing exemption provides, it's fairly new as of December of 2022. It follows the same sort of procedure as an OPRA, and that 25% of the property taxes would be abated for, in this case, it's a 12-year period. So the thing with this resolution, similar to the rezoning, is that the same language is in effect
effective date of the district shall be the date of the property transfer from Michigan Maple Block Company to Maple Block Flats LLC as set by the recorded deed by the Register of Deeds. So this kind of gets held in abeyance, if you will. Really what we're trying to accomplish, it's a little, there's a lot of moving parts to this, as we all know, but we're trying to kind of prop up this development for MISTA for their $3.8 million conditional grant that they've provided for this development. So we have to show from a city standpoint that we are committed to come to the table with an abatement of some sort or some fashion, if you will. This helps the developer kind of check that box from MISTA's standpoint, understanding that we still have other things to discuss and talk through. So again, this doesn't materialize or doesn't move forward if there's no development. So we have language built into this as such, but we're trying to move this along at the speed of the requirements that are in front of us. And unfortunately, it's a little cumbersome just based on, you know, who owns the property and the requirements to get this in front of MISTA by their deadline by the end of the month. So this helps us accomplish that. At least gives that gives the developer the opportunity to show and say that the city of Petoskey is ready to walk alongside the developer for this particular abatement opportunity. And again, we have other things to work through the implementation agreement that remains to be negotiated, but this allows that, again, that box to be checked for MISTA by the end of the month.
Did we have any comments? Receipt of any comments?
Open it up.
One quick observation. Like the other resolution, the owner requested this, almost demanded it, but also the form and semantics of it, we should add the recording of the warranty deed. I think that was just unintentionally omitted. So the same semantical changes the other resolution.
This is not, does not require a motion though for us. An adoption.
So we need to open a public hearing first of all.
Yeah, we'll get to that in we'll get
We'll get that later.
Correct.
Yes.
Just jumping ahead.
Okay. Other comments from the public then?
Gordon Berlin, 121 West Lake Street. Couple questions. We're talking about a 12-year abatement. When does the clock start ticking on that?
2025.
So there is is that a date that's set, you know, assuming that the project will be completed at that point? Okay. And in order to receive that abatement for the 12 years, then the project as presented has to be completed. My point is, if it's proposed to begin with, during the time from now until that date, can they come back and scale the project down and yet still get the abatement?
They'd be changing
That's I'm just asking.
It'd be out of the agreement, the scope of what the agreement tells them what they have to do and what we have to do.
But is it possible for council to amend that agreement?
Could you give me an answer to that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. My belief is that any change to the project would require the plan, so site plan approval, the process to scale that back. And the abatement is only for those AMI units. So, you know, that if there's reduced AMI units, which there won't be, because there'll be commitments for those in other agreements. But it won't be scaled back without the approval of the commission.
Oh, okay, thank you. The last question. When this is accepted and council says, okay, this has our stamp of approval. What are we looking at as a percentage of what we call affordable housing? I mean, I read, you know, I think that, yeah, they'd like it to be around 50% or whatever, but what do we have as a guarantee for, or what are you looking at for the percentage of affordable housing? And is it possible that at the end of the 12 years, can council put a stipulation that that has to remain?
We're still in negotiations with the developer through the city attorney and the city manager. So I think to go and deal with that right now.
Okay. Fair, that's a fair answer.
It's stuff that's being negotiated right now.
I would just say that what we're doing and what this was presented as originally was an answer or a partial answer to a tremendous need in this area. I mean, I think you could go to any one of the communities around us in number one or number two issue, if you were to go to a council meeting or a township meeting, number one or number two is going to be affordable housing. So there was a lot of excitement about this, you know, for the affordable housing. And I hope that it doesn't turn around, that we're putting city money in a project that's going to not really meet an adequate need that's out there. So I would recommend caution.
You understand that the abatement, as mentioned, is on the affordable housing piece of the 102 versus the 102 that are market rate.
Understand, but if we look at this and they say, okay, they come up with a way to make the project happen and they don't need the 102, and we start scaling back, you know, I think you have to have an ironclad agreement on the number of units, and the number of units stay that way.
Again, length of that is being negotiated right now. Numbers of how many at what AMI are being negotiated right now. So I don't feel it's fair or easy or doable.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not asking, I threw the question out. I don't want an absolute answer tonight. I'm just saying, these are things that I think have to be considered, and I think have to be strongly considered, because right now, the community, the average person in this community, that's why I asked about the PUD, the average person doesn't understand what that is. The average person doesn't understand what you're going through right now. They just look at it and they're excited about the fact that we are finally moving ahead with affordable housing. And I think the expectations right now are fairly high. I would caution to make sure that, you know, people are not let down.
But also people who are just saying housing period too. And I just want to throw that in, you know, we're going to our city manager, our city attorney, negotiating with the developers at this point, and that's all we can talk about as far as the finances go. Okay.
Yeah.
Miss Walker.
May I make a comment?
We're going to close the public hearing if that's all there is for comments, sir.
Yeah.
Just an observation, we're in the public hearing on the housing district. And the exemption certificate will come up next.
Just down the low.
Well, it's next.
Yeah.
So we'll keep the. This is a public hearing for the residential housing district for the property. Then you should close that.
Okay.
And then open it up for the residential housing exemption certificate.
Okay.
How y'all doing? I'm Adam McClancy from 916 Baxter. I'm kind of new to this information coming my way. Apologize for not being up to speed as you all are, but I'm just curious again as what amount of these homes are going to go to people that actually live here? Because that's a pretty big concern right now, is people from out of town coming to live where we live. And not that it's a bad thing to have new people in and new blood, but there's a lot of people right here. We got a daughter that's 15 years old and she might not be able to get a house here, you know, it's that tight, it's that dire, if you will. So I'm curious if you're gonna lock it down to Emmett, Charlotte, Sheboygan County people that have lived here for 3 or 4 years. And I know it sounds maybe a kind of prejudice, but people that are here that need homes, you know, not people in Florida that are coming up here to retire or whatever. Don't want to be prejudiced against those people, but And also 3 to 4 flights of stairs. I've lived upstairs before, and if there isn't. Excuse me, I'm a little nervous, but yeah, if you've never climbed 3 to 4 sets of stairs as a mover. Carrying groceries, whatever, I think that's something to consider as the elevator, but yeah, I really wanted to ask about if you're gonna lock it into. People that live in the area, so
We're not able, that would. We could not do that.
I was just curious.
It would be nice too, but I am sure our city attorney would say. That's all the implication.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no defense.
And what is the AMI of the area?
You have the numbers in front of you.
Mayor, I just want to, yeah, it's 57,000-ish. Is, I believe, the AMI.
For a single individual.
Single individual, okay. And are these, when you say of 102 units, is this for a single or for multi-person? Are these family units or?
The split of single and
1 and 2.
Okay.
2-bedroom.
So roughly 50 for multi, 50 for single. And then are the lower income units per se gonna be on the upper stories, you know? Something to consider, so
Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Mayor, I just want to add, follow up there that these are, they're not really short-term rentals, so they're for year-round residents, but not necessarily residents from a certain particular area.
Ms. Walker,
And when we're talking about AMI,
Wait, we gotta close.
all right, we're gonna close this public hearing. And move on.
Hang on, there a comment?
Like where we are as far as public comment, I wasn't quite sure. There's another.
we go on the public comment period.
I think we should close the receipt of comments.
Yeah, I was taught.
Just hang on.
If there's more public comment, I'd hear the public
Take them
comment,
first.
but again, we'll keep it to the topic. Residential housing district first, and then that.
We'll close that.
And then the exemption certificate. So we're on A, the residential housing district first.
So if you have comments on the residential housing district, please comment. Jessica,
Hi, yep, sorry if I'm holding this up. I just want to voice my support for this endeavor. And I also want to just express my appreciation for all the city council members and for everyone showing up. I currently live in Ward 4, and for 5 years I lived in Ward 1. And I just want to continue to voice my support and reiterate that we're very glad that you're addressing this need because it's very much apparent. Thank you.
Jessica, can you please, sorry, your
could you give
address?
us your full address?
Yep, my current address is 208 East Sheridan Street, apartment number 2.
Thank you. Other comments? If you have not spoken once, you can speak.
We can or we can.
Yeah, come on.
Carla Buckmaster, 3860 Sheldon Drive, Petoskey. I just want to say I agree with what Mr. Borland was speaking about. And also, I don't know if it fits in here, but I truly am concerned about taxpayer money with the abatements and the money being taken from the school's sinking fund that is voted millage. That I know that they talk about making the school districts whole, that's operating taxes that they will replace. But the sinking fund, they are able to take it and it will amount to $1 million over their time frame is what I have been told. And I find it a little bit concerning considering that on our next proposal, we have a school millage vote. And you need to do something. I don't know if you can, but try real hard to figure out how to not have that money that we as taxpayers voted to have for sinking fund for our facilities. Thank you.
Another one, yes. Miss Brown,
Hi, thank you for giving me a chance to speak. I have to run to another meeting, but I think my comments are relevant to all the items on the agenda, even the public hearing, and just want to express from Housing North's perspective, support for this project and all that the city council is doing to bring more housing to the region. As the consultant from Beckert and Rader mentioned, it is impossible to build housing right now at an affordable rate to almost all of our workforce and those that live here year round up to 120% of the area median income. This project will be really important, or is really important, for the city of Petoskey, especially given the new housing needs assessment numbers that show that we have a 0.7% vacancy rate across the region, and particularly in Emmett County is really high. So thank you for bringing this forward, and we do support everything that is on the agenda related to this project because it will bring much needed housing to the region. Thank you.
we'll close the public hearing and move on to the next one. Next is new business, the adoption of proposed resolution approving the establishment of the residential housing district for 14 Sporting Avenue. City manager. Fable again. I don't know. I'm so sorry.
I don't have anything further, Mayor, than what was already discussed.
I do see the listing of sinking funds. Yeah, does anyone wish to speak on the establishment of the residential housing district? Mr. Wagner? You.
So we're down to new business, right?
We're on new business number A.
Yeah. So I'll make a motion to approve the resolution of is approving the establishment of the residential housing district for 1420 Standish Avenue.
Oh,
Hit it again, Mike.
I'm a little colorblind. I can see red and green, but why don't we close the public hearing? It seems appropriate under 5A and then move on to the public hearing under 5B.
I did.
Or did we?
He did.
I did.
You didn't. Okay. So now we're on the consent agenda.
So you would drop down and do the resolution that's associated with the public
Correct.
hearing.
Gotcha.
Right, yeah.
So we'll do that, and then we're on A. 10A, new business.
Thanks.
Is that all right?
Okay. So I take it to you for possible motion or discussion.
Yeah, we had a motion.
You know, if you completed a motion.
The motion wasn't complete.
Oh.
I made the motion
I don't know where we were.
to approve the establishment of the residential
Okay.
housing district for 1420 Standish Avenue that we just discussed in the
Okay.
public hearing.
All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Motion from Mr. Wagner, second from Mr. Shields. Now discuss by council. Ms. Demore.
For reasons previously stated on the record, I will not support moving forward with the resolution in support of the establishment of the district at this time. Thank you.
Ms. Walker.
Yeah, Mayor, just to answer some of the questions that were during the public comment period. You know, talking about AMI and 120 to 80% is the number and the area what we've been discussing. That is, so 80% to 120%, capped at 120%. Chances are the rents are probably gonna be around that 100 to 120 at the max. Getting to the 60 to 80% of AMI requires low income housing tax credits. And this developer has been very clear that they're not interested in applying for those kind of federal funds. So when we're talking about affordability and for whom, we have to consider that affordability is going to be based on your annual income, and you should only in housing be spending 30% of your annual income on your mortgage or on housing. So all of those things being factored in, whom are these affordable for? And so we've looked at the chart of what that means for 120% of the AMI for a 1-bedroom unit and a 2-bedroom unit. We've looked at the numbers for who that would be for under the 80% of a 1-bedroom unit and a 2-bedroom unit. And honestly, these are pretty high wages that are not reflective of our wages here in Emmett County. So when we're talking about the most vulnerable of our citizens, those that make between 60 and 80% of AMI, we're talking about the need for the heaviest of heavy subsidized lifts, both federal funding, state funding, and local incentivized funding. We think that this project is putting too much skin in the game of the city of Petoskey. I can tell you that in order to get to a low-income housing tax credit, 60 to 80% of the area median income, I could almost envision it would be quadruple the financing that we would need to make this. And I looked at those numbers with a very critical eye. I figured out where my household was at between an 80 and 120% AMI, and I qualify for 90%. I would not be able to live in these houses. It's not for me. That doesn't mean that it's not a valuable housing for working class people of McLaren. Maybe there could be city or county employees that would be able to rent that kind of housing. But when you're talking about AMI, it's not some like loosey-goosey thing that you don't really understand. Like, these are real numbers and these are real people's annual income. So in weighing that, it's a very hard decision because we want the most vulnerable of those citizens to be covered under AMI and provide housing for the lowest of low income, as well as working and middle class people. And so we don't really have any control of what the AMI is, and those are set by state and by region in Emmett County. And we're still looking at the ability to be able to provide some kind of market rate and some kind of subsidized housing for working families. It's a really heavy lift, and I don't know if we're going to get there with this project because of how many subsidies are already required to make this development work. So moving forward, I hope that we have the ability to review projects with low-income housing tax credits to meet that need of the most vulnerable of our populations. But this is extremely complex, and I hope people come along with this because I'm really excited about the Michigan Maple Block development and the potential there. And I continue to question, who is that going to serve?
You understand that we are involved with pilots, which are payment in lieu of taxes for those in the under 80% at over 400, I believe it's 448 apartments in Petoskey right now that we are giving tax breaks on for those apartments right now. So it isn't that we're not doing something. The 448 apartments of not collecting the full tax on those is a good chunk for the city too. Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mayor. And I want to have a couple comments. Start out with saying I think that moving forward and supporting this residential housing exemption certificate is important to show good faith and the hope that the city and the developers can work together. And those final questions about that are being expressed about the length of the TIF and the various amount of the incentives that some of the speakers have shared concerns on. I do share those. I disagree with my colleague here, Mr. Moore, on saying no at this point versus saying yes at this point and hoping for because saying no at this point shuts down the possibility. I don't feel like we're at that point where we need to say no and shut this down. I think we need to continue to walk alongside and be an active player as and serve that role as a city to try to bring up about housing. Now, the question that has been raised about the affordable housing, I agree that we should be very careful using the word affordable. This is income-based housing. And outside of our hands, outside of developer hands, income-based housing, some of the units that will be called affordable will be very close, if not at market rate. That is the state of our economy. It is a state of some bigger issues of how we run our systems in this country. Does that weigh into how we move forward here? That is a great question I'm wrestling with. I think that as the Housing North representative spoke in the comment, that housing at all levels is important. There is, if this 240 units go up and someone in some of our maybe 60, 80 housing units right now say, hey, I'm at a place where I can afford to move to that new development, that opens up space in the 60 to 80 unit. So there is an argument for more housing units generally. The rental vacancy rate being 100% in 4 different units. This is the Housing North study. 100% vacancy rate in rental units that they looked at. They didn't find a vacancy. That shows that there is a need for more housing generally, and thus I am inclined to support this, knowing that or hoping that we can work it out. Some of the greater incentives. This incentive, I think, is an easy one. Some of the incentives on the total costs and the length of that income-based restriction, I hope we can work out. That is, but that's what I want to say and base my support for this.
Mr. Moore.
Well, just briefly, as a meta topic, I'd like to say that what you're seeing at this table is respectful and constructive disagreement. We should see more of that in government. Everybody here gets along. We have different perspectives and we're expressing those in a respectful way. So I'm proud to model that for the community and the young people that may be watching this. One thing I would recommend, I'm all about evidence-based decision-making. And recently there was a community overview and housing market summary that was done by Bowen National Research, which is available to anyone. I think it's really important. It outlines what it looks like here in terms of population growth, what the actual housing needs are, what expectations are for, will we have more renters? What age group will they be in? So I would only highly recommend that if you're interested to dig further into this, this is an excellent evidence-based resource. Thank you.
It's heavy read, 32 pages long, just to let you know. Mr. Wagner.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thanks all the council members and in public comment. It's easy to sit up here and say I motion to approve without explanation. But I want to say that we will get to some point where we've got a holistic view of this. Where we will review everything the developer has in terms of skin in the game and what the city has. And if it doesn't add up and it doesn't make sense, we won't go forward. But we're still building that. We're negotiating. We're working to do the right thing for the taxpayers and for housing. And so that's why I'm motioning to go forward.
Okay, any other comments, City Council? Does the public wish to weigh in on this motion? Online? Anybody online? I got a city clerk back for roll. Can't see you back there.
Sorry.
Come on up.
Sitting down, I'm in order, I guess. Kyla Buckmaster, 3860 Sheldon Drive, Petoskey, Michigan. A lot of what I'm going to say is kind of what Lindsay was talking about. If any of you ever are interested in social media and what's going on in the area, go to Facebook, Emmett County Helping Hands, and you'll get your eyes opened. the homeless people we have here. And people are looking for homes where they say they would like something for $700 or $800 a month. And I don't even think that that was presented here as an option. I'd like to hear again what, I've seen it, but I can't bring it up. It seems like it was 1,100 maybe, that the rents were gonna start at here. Something has to be done. And I know you feel like if you make it just for anybody to get in there, although they qualify, but they can pay more, that they will ease up something else. That's not going to happen either. It's, these people have to be remembered, thought of. Go to the County Helping Hands on Facebook. Open your eyes, a homeless. It's shameful.
Thank you. I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
So I was just going to make a comment based on what Jim mentioned, the resolution to add. You had suggested adding the recording of the deed.
Recording of the warranty deed.
Right. So just so you guys are
It'll mirror the other language.
Correct.
on your motion.
You're good with that. Mr.
Yes,
Shields,
I think Brian assumed that when he made
I
it.
just want to make sure.
I think they. Good.
So
Roll.
Wagner,
Yes.
Shields,
Yes.
Demore, nay, Walker,
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes, motion passes. 4-1. Okay, suggestions on where to go. Shall we go back up to the top now? Second public hearing, that's where I thought. Now we'll go to the next public hearing. That's receipt of comments concerning the application for a residential housing exemption certificate for Michigan Maple Block project at 1420 Standish Avenue. And I go back to City Manager Horn.
Yeah, part two of this, again, similar to an Oprah, there's two distinct parts to this abatement as well. So this resolution essentially authorizes the application of an exemption certificate to the State Tax Commission. This again is unique in that this application will not actually be sent in currently as it stands now. The developer is not the owner. So when and if that transfer takes place, then we move the application forward to the State Tax Commission for their consideration. So currently, as it stands, if this is adopted, we hold on to it, we wait for that transfer, and then we respond accordingly.
Same correction in that resolution as well.
Yes. This is open public hearing for comments. Does anybody wish to address council on this matter?
I
Please.
don't have anything to say on that, but I'm just curious before I say
You need,
another hour.
you need to come up and give us your full name and full
Where does new business?
name, full address. I'm sorry, but
Donna Woklansky, 309 Grove Street. So
thank you.
I could sit here another hour and a half and discuss Standish or listen to it. But where would somebody get something new on the program tonight? When does that happen?
To find something that you would like to bring up.
You got it.
You will have that at public comments, which will follow this. There'll be this public hearing, there'll be adoption of a resolution like we just did.
Okay.
And then I will be going to consent agenda, which takes 5 minutes. And then it'll go to public hearing for you.
Well, who knew it was gonna be that quick?
Ma'am, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your address.
309 Grove Street.
Thank you.
You will have the opportunity. If it is something that is on this agenda. Okay. I ask that you hold that comments, even in public hearing, to share us at that point. Anybody else wish to comment on this open public hearing? Okay, I close this public hearing and we will go to B, new business adoption of a proposed resolution approving the application for residential housing exemption certificate for Maple Block Flat Project at 1420 Standish Avenue. I take it to council for possible motion, motion and discussion, or discussion and then motion. Yours.
I have one question.
Please.
Before I make a motion, the terms of the agreement. So we're holding on to this until the project is approved. Could the terms change in the meantime, or instead of 12 years, it's something else?
It's up in the air.
Yeah, 12 years is the length of this abatement.
This particular one?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution. With the addition on the back about the register of deeds. Enhancing the transfer, so we did get that.
Yes.
Just tonight.
Yeah, we got it, the recording of the deed.
Okay.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second motion.
Mr. Shields, I have a motion from Mr. Wagner and a second from Mr. Shields. Now other discussion, Ms. Demore.
For reasons previously stated on the record, I will not support moving forward with the resolution in support of the exemption certificate. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any comments, discussion? Does the public wish to weigh in on this? Ain't nobody online either. I take it to Ms. Beck for roll.
Wagner.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Demore.
Nay.
Walker.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes, motion passes 4-1. Okay, now we're going back up to the top. We're gonna do the consent agenda. That's the adoption of a proposed resolution that approved the following. The August 21st, 2023 regular session city council meeting minutes, as well as September 11th, 2023 special session and closed session city council meeting minutes, as well as acknowledge a receipt of certain transactions, administrative transactions that have occurred since August 21st, 2023. I go to council for possible motion or questions.
I just have one correction, please.
Please
It's on page 30.
give us a chance to get there.
Second from last paragraph. It's the statement that I read last time, second sentence. It says that she is in favor of incentives beneficial to and needed by the city. It was, she is in favor of incentivizing priorities beneficial to and needed by the city.
Let's make sure Miss Beck gets that.
She is in favor of incentivizing priorities beneficial to and needed by the city. Thank you.
Got it, Sarah?
Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
yes, Ms. Walker.
I have a question about some of the payments this month. Bear with me, Mr. Clancy, I'll be right down. Just a minute.
Page,
So the first one would be on page 33.
1 second. Okay,
In terms of the total of gas and oil paid to Blarney Castle Oil Company in the month of August to a total of about $75,000. Just kind of curious if that's for fuel for our fleet or if that was marina fuel costs for our fueling station.
Mr. Horn.
That would be marina fuel.
Thank you. And then Mayor, I do have another question, if I may. Okay. On page 35. A capital outlay project in the total of $28,800 to Gordon Construction.
Okay. I believe that is the library's facade work that they're doing.
Okay, thank you. And then one more question, Mayor, if I may.
Sure.
Library facade, I don't know how to spell that. One moment, please. Lots of checks written this morning. Yes. Okay. On page 48, if I may, once again, another capital outlay project to R.W. Mercer Company, Inc. in the total of about $205,000.
That is for the completion of the fuel tanks at the marina. So that, I'm looking at Kendall, is that 100% built out now? Okay, so
Okay,
that's closed.
and I fibbed because I have one more. Thank you so much. On the very last page of the check registers, that would be page 51, there are two amounts issued to private citizens. The first one was a total of $38,000 to Grove, Gary and Cheryl Grove. And then there was another one for a total of $13,835 to a Herschel Moss. And I was just wondering what those check registers were. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. The 38,000 is a PRE, principal residence exemption. Am I saying that right? Exception, PRE that they qualified for, that they had paid, and so they get a refund. This is a Vista Bay Harbor property. So it has I believe I looked it up. It's like a $2.1 million property. So they received a refund because they have that opportunity. It's 100% PRE now that it wasn't previous when they.
Before it was like the homesteading tax, or I'm sorry, I'm not speaking correctly.
Yes.
Okay, understood. And would that be the same thing for the?
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Moss, we had an escrow due to the fire of his residence on Bay and Division. We had an escrow that amount for the demolition to make sure that that was completed. And he has obviously demolished the structure that burnt to the point where it is now. So he receives that money
One of
back.
Rose individual.
I'm sorry, Rose.
That's fine. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Mayor.
All right. Do I have a motion?
So moved as set forth on page 17 of our agenda with the minutes correction that I offered.
Do I have a second?
I'll be happy to second the motion,
I have
Mayor.
a motion from Ms. Demore and a second from Ms. Walker. Any other discussion? I'd go to City Clerk Beck for roll.
Demore,
Aye.
Walker,
Yes.
Shields,
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Now,
Pass down your closed session.
Okay. Fine.
you gotta have one.
No.
She's got it. Signs, we can,
Can I get this back to you?
Do we have to handle that from the minutes? Or just that? Thanks.
Yeah, that's the same thing, only cleaned up. So you can throw that one away.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay. Moving on to public comment. Come on down. You're up. This is a chance for anybody in the public to address city council. Full name, full address, talk to us, not the audience, so go for it.
Donna Woodlansky, 309 Grove Street. So I'm really curious, where on here does it say that we get a chance to talk? Where does it say new business not on the?
Where do you get a chance to, under 7, public comments?
Oh, so we were still in number 6? Oh my gosh, I was having trouble following, so, okay, thank you.
Yeah, we were playing tennis.
We're
today.
good. Yeah, normally.
We would normally go online, but when we had the public hearing, we went and addressed what that tied into, and it was 10 A and 10 B.
Well, it was very enlightening listening to the Standish. Everything Standish tonight, so very enlightening. Okay, the reason that my son and daughter-in-law and I are here tonight is do any of you know what's going on on the corner of Baxter and Washington Street? Has anybody been past there? Do you know? Okay.
Sure, we all know because we had to approve a zoning ordinance for that building.
And what is it going to be?
For Elder and Piper, it is a cidery and brewery.
That's going in, okay?
Yeah.
And will it have a parking lot like the back lot does too, that they'll have food trucks? It looks
Well, I
like they're-
believe right now there's some parking lot work happening between Harbor View Builders, Harbor Builders, and that new proposed building on the corner of Dexter and Washington. Yeah.
I believe I saw a proposed deck was part of the plans for it, a back in the parking lot, a deck. A deck was planned for the back of it. Am I right, Miss Robson?
Yes.
And what is the front and what is the back? When you say the back of it, where might that be?
To the north side of the building, on the north side of the building, facing the water. That's the north, and that's where they had planned on putting a deck.
Okay, but they'll be inside the building as well.
That would be on the back near the old
Near the railroad tracks. So they'll be on the.
So it'll be on the east side now, okay.
And then when a building like that goes in, I'm assuming that'll be cider with alcohol in it, so it would be like a bar. Do you have to notify the people that live nearby, or you just do it?
I believe they were all notified, is that right?
Oh, I believe not. What would you like to say?
300 feet.
Well, my son's door from his front door to their building is probably a little over 100 feet. And I don't believe anybody on that whole block got any type of notification. So who does that? Who sends out the notification?
The city planning.
And who might that be?
John D'Angelo.
Okay, could I have his phone number or some way to contact him?
You can, here's my card.
Yeah, in the point of where public comment goes to Marin if he wants to answer questions or direct staff. But we shouldn't probably have public comment asking citizens
Right.
to answer questions and have a free for all.
Okay, so just direct them at you guys. So anyway, so if nobody was contacted, you're still able to go ahead with it? If nobody knew?
I
about it?
believe people were contacted.
As
What
part
if
of
you-
the site plan review, there's a requirement to do that 300-foot radius. I don't believe there's a requirement just for beer and alcohol sales. That'd be a liquor control thing, and I don't think that's a requirement.
So you're saying that's not an additional requirement, it's just a simple requirement that business was going in there, or, oh, sorry, Mayor? Would you say just the fact that a business was going in there, no matter what it was, they should have been notified?
Probably.
And how can we verify either way that they were or were not notified, other than they didn't get a
I
notification?
would ask the city planner, call Shane in the morning. He will contact the city planner and get the information for you. I believe they document, don't they, Shane? Who gets it?
And how would that notification have come?
Is it mailed or it's mailed?
Okay, and then what, on your plans that you looked at, did it say anything about the street? Like, I've dropped my grandchildren off there in the last couple of weeks, and there's been so many vehicles parked there. If there's a vehicle on both sides, you have to wait on the corner. You cannot enter the street because there's only room for one car to pass. What kind of parking limitations might you have? It's a narrow street,
We have many of those
yeah.
and we have.
But we don't all have a bar coming in next door, so.
Mr. Horn.
This is your chance to public comment. We can correspond, after the fact, but this is not a
Okay, so you
dialogue.
can't say yes or no, you've seen them.
We went through a whole process with planning commission, those are public meetings.
Had we known, so
Okay.
I don't know where you screwed up, but you did. Nobody on the block knew. You know who told us what was going in there? The construction people. They knew, but no other, like, there's people out there working and working and working. And the sign on the truck said Bricker. I thought, oh, Bricker's putting in an office here. I mean, how would you know what was going in there? You don't know.
We will follow up on it tomorrow. Then we'll have some answers for you, okay?
Okay.
Anyone else have public comment at this point, sir?
Matt McClellan, representing Maple Block Flats and Great Lakes Capital. And I knew you'd be disappointed if I didn't talk, so I just
Please.
provide that. I want to thank you for your actions tonight. I know it's a challenge and a difficult process, but appreciate that to allow the opportunity to move forward with the Michigan grant. We look forward to continuing our discussions on the project as well and all of those items. I did want to provide one clarification on the environmental piece there, that there are 7 groundwater wells that were taken along the river. All of those were non-detect, so any of the soils that are leaching any of those contaminants into groundwater and into the river at least demonstrate that that's not the case at this point in time. There is one item that came back positive down kind of at the south end, so is an issue as well. But just wanted to kind of clarify that there has been quite a bit of sampling done there. At least the evidence shows at least minimal, if any, leaching into the water. And I know that Shane has contacted Eagle. That's kind of their responsibilities to go back and do the sediment testing and work through that. So provide that clarification.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else wish to address city council at this time? Sarah, online, anybody? No?
No.
Okay. Gonna move on. City manager's update, and I'll turn it over to city manager Horn.
Thank you, Mayor. Run through this fairly quickly. This is our first regular meeting in September, so I wanted to highlight our staff as I normally do with staff birthdays and work anniversaries for the month of September. Becky Goodman downtown celebrates a birthday this month. Carl Fritz, Public Safety Officer, Todd Troxel, Lieutenant with Public Safety, and Jordan Rea with water and wastewater, all celebrating September birthdays. September work anniversaries for staff. Nicole Stradling in the finance department celebrating 2 years with the city in September. Pam Potter downtown parking 6 years. Jody Haven with the library 9 years, and Sherilyn Greenwell here in the finance department 26 years with the city this month. Heavy week this week for meetings tonight. Obviously, city council tomorrow night. Downtown management board has a regular meeting at 6 o'clock here in this room. They will consider and approve their 2024 parking budget, as well as the 2024 downtown program and services budget, and also the 2024 special assessment process as well. So that'll be tomorrow night here at 6 o'clock. Planning commission's the following night on Wednesday this week at 6 o'clock. They will based on they've had some pretty heavy meetings, including a special meeting already this month. So I think this one should be a little lighter for them. They will be talking about rental inspection and certification, as well as some overall housing condition report. A few things to highlight coming up, and maybe one of the council members will pick up on this in their comments. I hope I don't walk over somebody doing that, but so this Saturday is a celebrating solar event that we've tried to help push the information out. So community solar at the back lot on Saturday the 24th at 11:30, talking about community solar projects, including the installation at the back lot on their roof. Also, we're happy to report that our application, our LOI for USDA rural development funds, we've been asked to take the next step in that process. So essentially to file an application. This would be through the vendor Solar America. They have been invited to submit the application for a solar array at the landfill. So we will be doing a site visit next week with Solar America and Bear Creek Township to walk the site and to kind of explore what that could look like from a solar array standpoint. There is a fairly short turnaround for this application. It's a 60-day turnaround. We will be asking for an extension of that because there's still a number of things that we need to work through to make that application complete. Another thing we want to let folks know about coming up at the end of this month, actually next Wednesday, the 27th, is an opportunity for folks to provide input and feedback on non-motorized transportation opportunities within Emmett County. So we will be hosting that kind of an open house where you can come and go here at City Hall from 6 o'clock to 7:30. There'll be representatives from Networks Northwest that will take comments and feedback and share in the discussion as they start working toward putting that region active transportation plan together. So again, that's next Wednesday here from 6 to 7:30. Again, that's come and go and provide feedback and information during that. Kendall and I were pleased to be offered an opportunity to walk through and get a kind of behind the curtain look at Nub's Knob. As you know, we're trying to reimagine what the winter sports park could look like with snowmaking equipment. So we were able to get some really good feedback from the folks that do this, all day, every day during the winter months, generating snow. So the left picture is the portable units that are on wheels that they put on the hills, and this is what they use from October, probably October, November-ish to the end of December. So they have offered us the ability to use some of their mobile units, and they'll bring those over after the first of the year to allow us to try essentially before you buy type of concept and kind of get a handle on what this could look like for us if and when we get ready to actually put these units together for our own purposes. There's pretty substantial infrastructure requirements from a water flow, from a water pressure standpoint, from an electrical standpoint. So we want to make sure that we're geared up appropriately if this is something that we want to pursue. The picture to the right are the towers, and that's ultimately what we would love to see if the mobile units work out well. That way we don't have to move these units around. We would put these on the hillside and position them to be able to get good coverage of the hillside and the ice rink area. So really appreciative of Nub's Knob. They spent a lot of time with Kendall and I to kind of, again, show us their operations, and they were very informative. So we appreciate that. And then last week, Thursday, we had our site visit from Baird's on the Little Traverse Wheelway Slope Restoration Project. Baird and their subs joined Kendall and I, and also reps from the Trails Council, and we walked the trail section of the failed slopes, and they were able to start collecting data. Actually, this week they'll be installing a couple more monitoring wells along our easement along the trail, kind of behind the Arrowhead area. Again, all the data that MDOT collected earlier this summer, they drilled, I believe, 4 monitoring wells up on the top of the roadway. So we're able to use that data. We're going to use the data that we get from these wells to really give us that guidance we need to put a concept together and help us design the improvements accordingly. So this was able to kind of put boots on the ground. Some of these folks that were working with Baird, this was the first time they were actually able to see it. We had a beautiful morning. You can see right now, the water was crystal, there's no wave action at all. So they were able to use that time effectively and take advantage of this season where we have great weather, and they can get some field work done before things get too crazy from a weather standpoint. Questions for me? Also, Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Manager Horn. I had a question with the transportation meeting. Can residents or people come to that meeting with maps, hand-drawn maps saying this is where it's unsafe for me to bike or walk? Is that something that can happen?
Absolutely, yes.
And then my second question is, the funds, we approved funding for the snowmaking equipment. And at one point I heard that the hope was to expend those funds this year. I love the idea of the try before you buy. It's very generous of Nubs. That's an awesome offer. So does that mean we are not expending money yet this year?
We will probably not expend it this calendar year. The hope is that we want to really get a handle on, can our infrastructure support? Because the last thing we want to do is have the equipment there and the snow just kind of drops out and it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. Because the other challenge we have is we need to be able to move that snow around. So what does that mean? Do we need snow cats, those equipment that can move snow effectively, or is it a front end loader? That slope would be challenging with obviously a front end loader, so we need to be able to generate the snow, but we also need to make sure that it's groomed appropriately so we can use the slope as we've designed or intended. So I think we want to try to at least try the equipment. Is our infrastructure in a position that can support it? And maybe what we're going to need to do is invest some of that money more. I think the budget we had proposed, and I'm looking at Kendall, was around 25,000 for infrastructure improvements. We're not sure if that's going to accomplish what we need to do. So we need to get, and they've agreed to come over and walk our site with us and kind of put eyes on it as well. So what is it going to take from a water flow, from a diameter of water line, from a pressure? We know we're going to have to boost the pressure. I think these things operated at what, Ken, over 300 PSI. 750. So, our normal water pressure in the city is anywhere from 60 to 80. So we know we're going to have to boost that pressure and regulate that accordingly to be able to make these things go. So we have some work to do on the front end for sure.
Okay, and will any money spent that we approve for that project, will that be highlighted in our check registers, or will we be able to see that?
Yeah, we'll try to separate that out so you know exactly what that looks like, and where your designation, your designated funds, went to, and what that looks like.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Moore.
Just a quick question. Did you say, City Manager Horn, that the test drive would begin in January?
Yeah, they use their equipment really up until the end of the year, and then the mobile units, they don't use them. So essentially they just sit unused. So they're more than willing to allow us to, and they would even bring them over and help us get them set up. So we wouldn't be able to use them until after the first of the year. So the first part of January is when we would actually have the ability to use those, and it's their equipment. So we don't want to say, oh, you can't make your own snow. It's their equipment. So we'll kind of wait in line and wait till they're done, and then we'll try it. And because we want to make sure, again, we don't want to invest the money into something that is not going to work. So we want to certainly make sure that we're set up appropriately.
And then just a second question too, regarding the non-motorized transport event. Is that on the city website or?
Yes, it's on our social media. I don't know if Sarah, did you put it on the website yet? Okay, we can certainly do that, but it's on our social media. It's on our Facebook page. Networks Northwest has it out there, and I don't know if anyone else has picked it up yet either, but we'll try to push that out again on our website as well.
Thank you.
Anything else, council? Okay. Moving right along. Next is the consideration of appointments to the Arts Commission and the Planning Commission. We'll take one at a time on those. Page. First one I bring forward to you, there are two open positions on the Community Art Commission. I'm bringing forward Ralph Ed Boyer. He's been involved attending our informal meetings on the Public Art Commission. Every meeting I think he's been to. He is on the board for Crooked Tree. I'm bringing him forward as one of the two people. I ask that you consider backing this with a motion. Mr. Moore.
Yeah, I want to express a concern. A third applicant, Sandy Selden, reached out to me yesterday to advise that she was not contacted in connection with her application to be a member of the commission. This is of concern to me as her 2-page detailed submission reflects that she is a very worthy candidate for consideration. To be clear, I don't know the background of either of the applicants put forward by the mayor beyond what's contained on the single sheet each provided, and I don't offer any perspective here on their qualifications. My position is that Ms. Selden's submission is impressive and certainly worthy of outreach by the mayor and consideration by this council for one of the positions on the Arts Commission. In the spirit of transparency, I would request that such consideration be given before moving forward with the Art Commission appointments.
I would like to make a comment. I have contacted over the last 8 years, every person who has applied on the board. I missed this one. Okay, out of 8 years, I've missed one. 56 people are appointed on boards and commissions that I've brought forward and we have appointed. 56. This is the first time that I have missed interviewing a person. And I did apologize to her today on the phone and talked with her at length. I believe she's got a lot to offer. And I also said to her that I would take her name and go forward when the Arts Commission meets and discuss if they wanted to put her on the board and enlarging the board. I made that comment to her. So I feel comfortable with the 2 appointments that I have made. There were a lot of good applications. There were 5. And I made what I felt was the best selection with these 2 people. Mr. Shields.
Mayor, can you explain, so this is the Art Commission, was there another board or committee that's going to?
Here's how it, yes, and all of the people that I've spoke to wanted to be involved in, didn't realize that this commission does not select the art pieces that are placed anywhere in the town. Let's say the public, the Parks and Rec says right down here at the waterfront at the corner, that would be a great place for a sculpture. Took a tree, and we've worked with them to have them contract with the city. They would do a outreach to artists to find artists that would be interested in doing art here. And the Art Selection Committee, which would be selected by the Arts Commission, would then sit down and review all of those applicants for a sculpture. They would select the one that they felt was the best for that position. It would come back to this Arts Commission simply as a double check to ensure that it is not risque, political, questionable for the community. So the Crooked Tree would coordinate our Art Selection Commission people. Our Art Selection people would be city residents. I've made a request that it would be city residents that would be involved in selecting the arts, since they are the taxpayers. I've had people asked to be on it from Harbor Springs and somebody from Charlevoix, even Boyne City. And I stated that we would be in-house with our taxpayers being on the selection committee.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. And so the Art Commission selects the Art Selection Committee members.
Yes, yes. Ms. Demore.
So just to reiterate, and Ms. Selden gave me permission to speak about this on the record. It was her interest to be considered for the Art Commission. My purpose in raising this is not to beat you up because you missed one outreach, but I just think I've seen her application, and again, it's worthy of consideration. And I worry about the appearance, whether accurate or not, that a decision on candidates selected was like already made before a request was applications was issued. I just think it's important that she have an opportunity to be considered before we move forward. So
and I did look through the forms. I did reviewed all of them. And I selected what I felt were the 2 best people to be on the Community Arts Commission. So, Mr. Shields,
I appreciate the comments and I will make a motion to approve Mr. Boyer to the Art Commission.
do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion from Mr. Shields, second from Miss Walker. Any other discussion? Yes.
Only that for both of these appointments, I will be voting no, having nothing to do with these gentlemen or their qualifications, but solely to reflect that I don't think the process that was employed considered all the applicants. Thank you.
I don't think it's anywhere written that I need to do anything other than review the applicants and make the selection. I have gone out of my way the last 8 years to meet personally with individuals to go through their application to ensure that it's right. I did read this applicant, and I apologize that I did not get back with her until today.
Make one comment.
Yes.
I remember when this came up for us, thinking that I recommended maybe even more commissioners from the community. Is that something that city council could revisit to, I mean, it would probably have to be a resolution to amend it to 3. I'm not asking to do that tonight, but it's.
If you do, that's fine, but I can't say that this person would be the person I would select.
Absolutely not.
Unless you want to make a motion for city council to accept this person and put her on the board. I guess you have that option probably.
And I would even offer, this position's on there, but I don't necessarily need to be on there. Kendall could be the city rep, because he's gonna need to be involved in where these go within these public spaces. Certainly I don't necessarily need another meeting. So if you wanted to drop me off and put another member of the public in that position, that would be fine as well.
I would only say that in a sense, I think the 3 of you sitting at the table are at a disadvantage because you haven't seen what her submission was.
Have you not seen her application?
Why would we have seen Sandy Sullivan's
Oh,
application?
okay.
They only get it.
They only get it once it's in the
Yeah,
packet.
we only get the ones that are being
Yeah.
recommended,
Yeah.
so we don't get to review those. Others.
I have a copy with me, which I'm happy to provide to you, not for immediate decision making, but if anyone wants to see that. She has been a board member of Crooked Tree, she was a board member of Crooked Tree. She's been a member since 1988. She has a master's degree in art. She was their visual arts director for 3 years, putting up 3 shows every year. I mean, it's a substantial resume. So that's my point of concern, bringing it forward. Thank you.
Well, Mayor, I think I would like to see the Arts Commission drop the city manager position and have one more member at large from the public. So if not, for process, if that can happen tonight or maybe a future agenda item.
Yeah, I actually have 2 people who applied and have expressed an interest and have given a very worthwhile application for this position, which is very honorable as well. So I can't tell you that I am for sure going to put this candidate that you brought forward on over the person that I thought was number 3. So
Well, just point of clarification, I didn't bring the candidate forward. She brought herself forward, so, and asked that I discuss it on the record. Thank you.
okay. Okay. What I'd like to do, I'd like to put these 2 people on the board. And I will go back. And I think it would be important to discuss with the Arts Commission the makeup of their board. I'm fine with dropping City Manager Horn off of the list, but I feel I feel we should discuss that at the board level with the Arts Commission versus just making changes. Unless you feel that you want to hold these up and we'll come back in another month with names.
I support the opportunity for every candidate. I did not know there were 5 to be fully heard and vetted with a transparent process.
Are you suggesting that you want applicants to come, these applicants for boards to come to you guys for, or you, Ms. Demore, to review for who I am for my selection?
No, I'm just concerned when a constituent reaches out to me to say that they weren't contacted, they had no idea that their application even had been considered. That's of concern to me.
Right.
If we want to conduct these type of processes in a transparent manner, I certainly do not need to review applications.
Okay.
Perhaps others do.
Do you wish, Mr. Wagner?
I like what you said about going back to the commission. It is like if it were a planning commission thing, I would like them to discuss it and make a recommendation to us.
Okay, thank you. And as I say, I apologize to her numerous times this morning on the phone. It's the first person that I have not made an appointment with of sitting down and meeting out of 8 years, out of appointing 56 people. And I did apologize, and I guess sometimes people make a mistake, and I guess we learn to move on with that.
And again, my bringing this before the body was not in any way to disparage your efforts.
No.
But just simply to talk about process.
Okay.
So Mayor, I'm not changing my motion, anything, keeping it as is.
And I screwed up the process, okay? I apologize to you, Mr. Moore, to you, Mr. Wagner, to you, Mr. Shields, to you, Ms. Walker. Are we good with that now? Is there any other apologies I need to make? I will make them. Including staff. I don't wish to put you in a bad position either, or city attorney on this, okay? So I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
Shields,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Demore,
No,
Wagner,
Yes,
Murphy.
Yes. The next one I bring forward to you is August Matuzak. He is was involved with the Arts Commission in Alpena for the last years, has moved to the city and has asked to be involved with this process as well. Mr. Wagner?
I would like to make a motion to approve August Matuzak.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion from Mr. Wagner and a second from Mr. Shields. Any other discussion? Yes, please do.
again, just for the record, my vote against this motion is no reflection whatsoever on Mr. Matuzak. It's simply that I have concerns about the process.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
Wagner,
Yes.
Shields,
Yes.
Demore,
Nay.
Walker.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. Next is the Arts Commission appointment of following by title. Downtown Management Board staff member. Mayor or city council member appointee. City manager. City Parks and Rec Director Department staff member. Crooked Tree Arts Center staff member. Those are more or less the boilerplate pieces that I felt would be the individuals who have been in this informal meetings to get this thing set up for the city. And I take it to city council. If you wish, right now, we can strike the city manager if you wish.
I'd like to make a motion to approve those by the following title with the comment or the addition that you take our desire to drop the city manager and add another at-large resident for consideration to that commission to discuss.
Can we do that? Without,
I don't have a copy with me of that commission and the language that created that commission, so I don't know if that was a shall or where that was. Maybe Shane knows, but I'm caught off guard because I don't have that in front of me. I don't know what you did before when you said, if it said something like you shall have a member of the following. So you might have to revise it. I remember reading when you reading it when you created it, but I don't have it.
so you want to hold on those members then? Is that what we're doing, or move forward?
I think you can just go ahead and
Move forward.
vote.
Okay.
And then we can amend the.
Yeah, okay. Do I have a motion from
So moved.
Mr. Shields,
I'll be happy to second the motion, Mayor.
Ms. Walker? So Mr. Shields and Ms. Walker support of the Arts Commission appointment by title of those that are listed. Any discussion? I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
You're saying still minus the city manager position.
Are we allowed to do this? I'm asking the city attorney.
I don't know. I don't have the.
If we can always bring the policy back.
The policy back, yes. Stay with it this way. We will meet as a commission. And at that point, we can address the changing of the memberships on this board, okay? This will get us going so we can meet. And this will get us going so we can start looking at some art in our community now rather than a year or two from now.
So the motion is going to be as
As
is.
is.
Okay.
Motion, yes, keeping the motion as is, as stated in the agenda memo.
Ms. Walker,
I second that, Mayor.
I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
Shields.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Demore.
Aye.
Wagner.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. Next is planning commission, it's a reappointment of Bethany Braddock from 622 Elizabeth Street, and I bring forward her for reappointment. Ms. Walker,
Make a motion to reappoint Bethany Braddock at 622 Elizabeth Street and Richard Newman, or we've been.
No. just one.
Bethany Braddock at 622 Elizabeth Street.
Second. Mr. Wagner, a motion from Ms. Walker and a second from Mr. Wagner for Bethany Braddock. Any other comments? Mr. Shields.
Thanks, Mayor. Sorry, another process question. Do you ever term limits to planning commission?
We have no term
No
limits.
term limits, okay. So if, and I support both these candidates, but one thought, the planning commission members have a large and influential role in our city, and value change of perspective and views. So, if that was something in the future, we could raise the concern of the council.
When I took over as mayor, there were 3 or 4 people that have been on there over 20 years on boards. I probably picked up 1 or 2 enemies because I told them that I was not reappointing them.
Got it.
I felt it was important. At that point, there was nobody with more than 10 to 12 years on a board. I look carefully for that because I think while we have to look for institutional knowledge on boards, especially the planning commission, if we were to elect 8 new people every year or every other year, or 3 years to the planning commission, there would not be institutional knowledge. And I feel it would hinder the moving forward on motions and good stuff.
I appreciate your comments. Thanks, Mayor.
Yeah, I'm very cognitive though of years served, because I know, other people are very interested. I do save all the applications along with Sarah. We save those for possible, if somebody drops or moves, we go back to those as well as look for new people. Sarah, would you could do roll for Bethany?
Walker,
Yes.
Wagner,
Yes.
Demore,
Aye.
Shields.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. Next is Richard Newman. Rick Newman from 610 Grand Avenue. This is also a 3-year term. He brings a lot of institutional knowledge to this board. I think he may be the longest serving. I don't have it in front of me, but it has not been that long. And so I'm bringing his name forward. Mr. Moore.
So moved.
I'll be happy to support the motion, Mayor.
A motion from Mr. Moore, a second from Ms. Walker. Any other discussion, council? I go to Sarah Beck for roll.
Demore,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Shields.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Next, the adoption of a proposed resolution approving the grant agreement in the amount of $150,000 for the Great Lakes Sports Commission for the Winter Sports Park Pavilion and Hockey Rink upgrades. I turn it over to Team Manager Horn.
As Kendall starts his way up to the podium, many of you remember back earlier this summer, we had a nice celebration with the Great Lakes Sports Commission at the Winter Sports Park, luncheon with Parks Commission members attending as well. So this grant kind of formalizes that, and I'll kind of turn it over to Kendall.
Well, not much more needs to be said. This has been in the works for a couple of years. The Great Lakes Sports Commission went through some administrative changes with new executive director. So it did take a little bit longer than I think we had all hoped, but we were finally able to get the grant agreement, and it's here before you, looking for a vote to support the grant agreement.
We have a motion, Ms. Walker.
Mayor, I'd be happy to make a motion to have City Council consider the approval of the grant agreement with the Great Lakes Sports Commission.
Mr. Support Wagner. A motion from Ms. Walker, second from Mr. Wagner, supporting the $150,000 commission grant. Any other discussion, council? Mr. Shields.
Thanks, Mayor. Section 3.9, page 67. This talks about membership in the Great Lakes Sports Commission. Have we ever been a member before?
We have not, and I did talk to Eric, the executive director, about that clause. Out of good faith, I would like to commit to it for 1 year, but it is not in perpetuity.
Thank you.
Any other comment, council? There being none, I go to Sarah Beck for roll.
Walker,
Yes.
Wagner,
Yes.
Demore,
Aye.
Shields.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. Next is the adoption.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kendall, for your hard work in this. I know this is your baby as far as a lot going on with the hockey rink, now the ski hill. Thank you for all you do. I know you've operated short-handed up until about a month ago in your department. Thank you. Adoption of a proposed resolution that would approve City Park Grill rental rehab development agreement. I turn it over to City Manager Horn.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. The Kitties have joined us as well tonight. Thank you for your patience with us as we work through this agenda. So, as you know, the Wine Guys Holdings LLC, the City Park Grill project for rental rehab, which will provide 5 workforce affordable housing units above City Park Grill, was awarded CDBG grant funds, $533,395 in CDBG grant funds. Paired that with $550,000, just over $550,000 in private funds for the almost $1.1 million project to provide 5 new residential units above City Park Grill. And as you can imagine, we would love to have a bunch of these and queued up, ready to go. But as you can also imagine, these, especially in historical structures, are very expensive to do
with fire suppression and getting up to all the standards that we currently have to deal with from a building code standpoint. So it's a substantial lift. And so this development agreement kind of helps kind of formalizes, it provides for that kind of oversight of the funds. We as the city are the fiduciary for this project. Essentially, we would get the invoices from the contractor. We have a grant administrator that is funded through the grant that helps and takes a lot off my shoulders and staff's shoulders. She will review the invoices. We will submit them. We will obviously seek reimbursement through the grant. So we're the pass-through agency in this, but ultimately we are responsible for that $533,395 CDBG grant award. So we have put together a development agreement. Jim was gracious enough. He is conflicted in this review, so he has provided me the another attorney to help me put this development agreement together. So we've gone back and forth with an outside attorney and the Wine Guys Holdings to put this development agreement in front of you that's currently constructed. So again, this helps us formalize our arrangement, making sure that we're in conformance with the rules, regulations, and requirements of MEDC and the city and the developer, making sure that we're all kind of talking the same language, and we are, everybody's. This is, especially for someone that hasn't, this is not, and hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn, Bob, but this is not their wheelhouse. And we don't do these every day as a city. So we're all kind of learning through this together, and there's been a little bit of learning pains throughout this process. And so I appreciate their patience throughout this, and there's been some delays. And so the next item we'll talk about maybe some potentially more delays, but it's to their benefit potentially. But this development agreement again formalizes our relationship contractually.
Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Shane, for this due diligence. I know this has been a lot of work, and I'm so grateful for all of the above. Now, just to have for public comment, or for the sake of public disclosure, this is the third Oprah agreement that the city has engaged in, but this is the first of its nature where there is state grant money and the public-private partnership that would transpire. So could you give me a little bit more information or like comparison to where those other two projects are, or this one would be? Obviously, they're asking for a 6 to 12 year tax abatement duration. And so is that 12 years, or is it 6, or is it 8? Can you answer that question?
I'm sorry, you jumped ahead one item. So that's the next item on our agenda. So this is specific to the development agreement for the CDBG grant funds, the $533,000. The next item we'll talk about the Oprah district and setting that district up, or setting the public hearing to set that up. So the item in front of you now is the development agreement, again, specific to the grant award.
Thank you.
Mr. Moore.
So let me say at the outset that I support the development agreement, but I have a concern, and I just want to discuss it with everybody. So back at a council meeting on March 20th, we had a discussion with Mr. Keaty on Zoom about his ask from the city in connection with this project. You probably will recall it was a very wide-ranging discussion about a contribution from the city, the type of AMI units, and the duration of those units for the development. Following the discussion, the 4 of you voted to support a $50,000 donation. To my recollection, the source of the donation was not determined. And in exchange, council members made a specific request about the number of apartments at a certain AMI, and initially sought a duration of 10 years, then 7 years. That was Mr. Shields, and then ultimately agreed to 5 years. At that time, the city manager indicated on the record that all of the above would be included in the development agreement. So ultimately, I didn't vote to support the motion because it was unclear to me what was agreed upon and where the $50,000 would be sourced. And the resolution that was ultimately approved actually contains two conflicting paragraphs regarding the content of the agreement reached that evening in connection with the $50,000 donation from the city. So I'm currently unsure what the council members and Mr. Keaty, the developers, understand that agreement to be. Having said all that, neither the donation or whatever the terms were are included in this development agreement or in Exhibit C. Exhibit C is like a broad acknowledgement by Mr. Keaty regarding affordable housing in connection with the grant agreement. So I'm just bringing this to the table to have discussion about if it's, should it be in here or if it's not in here? How is that going to be?
First, I'd like a definition. Is this a gift? Is that what this is called? A gift?
I don't know.
Is that what'd you call
Donation.
it? A donation. Is it called a donation?
We're talking about the development agreement now?
No, the $50,000 that we.
That was brought up brought up conceptually on, is the city interested in potentially come alongside the developer with, and then we didn't know what the instrument was going to look like. Obviously, it's a little cumbersome and probably not even legal for us to provide donations to this project, as we all know. So my response to that, in reaching back out to the owners who, again, they're seeing increased costs every day that nothing's happening, kind of increase the cost of the project. So an Oprah, in my mind, kind of checked the box of the city coming alongside this development to incentivize them to get 5 more units in the central business district. So in my mind, that meets the intent of what we were trying to accomplish in that initial discussion and resolution.
So the donation is really not a donation, but they qualify through Oprah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the resolution says, it doesn't say that. The resolution says we commit up to $50,000 to provide year-round workforce housing. I'm just trying to figure out, at the time, on the record, the city manager said this would be part of the development agreement. And now you're proposing something different. Is that the plan? Or?
Well, it's up to council how you want to proceed with it. You can rescind the resolution. It's just a resolution. Nothing has transpired. That was part of a discussion process to get feedback to the developer and the owner with the cost of fire suppression, that it increased the cost of their project. So would there be any appetite for the city to walk alongside this project in some form or fashion? And in my mind, providing an Oprah accomplishes that, and that, the structure of that remains to be seen, because I just need to know if there's a desire to move in that direction.
The Oprah is what, 25% of the taxes for that year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of how many years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're jumping ahead again, but we're still looking at the development agreement at this point. And I'll take your feedback if we need to go back to the drawing board and incorporate anything additional. I can certainly do that. We spent a significant amount of time to get the document that's in front of you in a way that is currently constructed, but
I'm not advocating for that. I'm only putting on the record that that was a commitment we made that you indicated would be in the development agreement, and it isn't. So I'm trying to clarify what's going to happen with that.
Anybody?
Yep.
Mr. Shields.
So I'll admit, we're a bit confused. It's probably the process.
Sorry.
Your comments. No, that's great. I appreciate your diligence on that. What I'm understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that this Oprah is something that's evolved in the process. And so the agenda item right now of dealing with the Oprah development agreement is what's on the table. So I don't know. Where my confusion is how that relates to the 50,000? Or is it, this is a specific,
It's how to address 50,000 to assist the developer. And knowing that we are not donating or gifting money. City manager Horn looked into how to do it legally to get them some support instead of handing them 50,000, which was never, it was never going to be a $50,000 hand them money. That was never the process. It was, what is your interest in possibly giving a tax break that would amount to around that area?
sure, yeah,
And that's where we're at right
got
now.
it,
with
yep,
this.
okay, that's how I'm understanding that.
That's right.
And then I'll make a motion to approve the proposed resolution that would approve City Park Grill rental rehab development agreement.
Okay. Anyone?
Feel free.
Otherwise, I'll support. Okay. I have a motion from Mr. Shields, second from Mr. Wagner. Any other discussion, council? Being none, I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
Shields,
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Demore,
Aye.
Walker.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Next is the introduction, discussion, and possible adoption of a proposed resolution to set a public hearing regarding the potential establishment of an obsolete property rehabilitation act district, OPRA, for 432 East Lake Street. I take it back to City Manager Horn.
Thank you, Mayor. This is again, just to get feedback. If there's a desire to move forward, we obviously need to set, similar to what we just did, essentially 2 public hearings, one to set the district, which in this case is 432 East Lake Street. And then the second public hearing would be to for the application certification that would go on to the State Tax Commission. So we're still working through what that could look like. Our assessor is reviewing data currently. We did do a walkthrough with the owners last week, looking at the upper floor, and the assessor is comfortable that it meets the definition of functional obsolescence. Essentially, half of the upper floor is without flooring, walls, obviously needs, it's gutted essentially, and certainly I think it meets that definition. The first half of the upper floor did have some office space in it, but it's fairly dated. So we checked that box from a functional obsolescence standpoint. So I think that is fine. The owners they have to, I guess, ask the question, is it worth a delay for them to the tune of potentially 60 days, not doing it, because no work can happen until this district gets set up. So they may still come back and say, you know, we've analyzed it, we've talked to our contractor, and the delays are problematic. But I wanted to at least provide an option for them to consider if that was something that City Council wanted to do. I think it certainly could provide some level of funds for them from an abatement standpoint to facilitate that renovation. And again, provide 5 affordable / workforce units in our central business district.
Is the tax from the Oprah roughly the $50,000 area?
I mean, that still remains to be seen. It's a minimum 6 years. So it's 6 to 12 years is the range, 12 being the max, 6 is a minimum. So it will likely be over that amount, but it would be similar to the 318 or 316, 318, thank you, Lake Street. That was only a 6-year Oprah. I would imagine this would also be in that range, but we need to run those numbers, and we'll have that for you if the council wants to at least set the public hearing. We
can set the public hearing and you will have those numbers for us prior.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm asking council for a motion to possibly set a public hearing for the Oprah. Mr. Wagner.
So moved.
Support.
There was a motion from Mr. Wagner, a motion second from Mr. Demore. Any other discussion, council? Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, those numbers will include the abatement year length. Will also include what the description of affordable is, or the statement of AMI and income-based units.
I mean, the development agreement, they have to have the units, 3 of the 5 units have to be in that 80 to 120. In talking with the owners, and I would have to agree with their analysis, just because of the location, you're above a working restaurant / bar, there's very limited private parking, if any. So the size of the units themselves, just by their nature, they're going to be affordable units. They're not going to be Airbnb'd. So
will those?
I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, well, in additional, will those follow up, will those statements like it'll be year round, will that be in the resolution?
I can certainly add that, and I think they've made the commitment that they're not interested in short-term rentals. Hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn, Bob, if you want to correct me. Yeah.
We will put it in the agreement, okay?
Yeah.
I can have it in the agreement that it will not be short-term rentals, it'll be year-round rentals.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? I go to city clerk Beck for roll.
Wagner.
Yes.
Demore. Aye. Shields.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. Passes 5-0. Next is the introduction, discussion, and possible adoption of the board resolution to set a public hearing regarding potential approval of the obsolete property rehabilitation exemption certificate application for 432 East Lake Street. And I took it back to City Manager Horn.
Again, very similar to our process before. It's a 2-pronged process, setting the district and then allowing for the application of the exemption certificate application to the state tax commission. So both these kind of run concurrently, but separate public hearings.
This is simply for a public hearing. This is not making any decisions on this process at all. Do I have a motion to do a public hearing? Ms. Walker.
I'd be happy to make a motion, Mayor, for the public
Do I have
hearing.
a second?
Second.
Mr. Shields, thank you. A motion from Ms. Walker, second from Mr. Shields on the setting up a public hearing. Any other discussion? I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
Walker.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Demore.
Aye.
Wagner.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. Next, the discussion on implementation of a 1% property tax administration fee. I turn it over to City Manager Horn for this one.
Mayor, I think for the sake of timeliness, this discussion might be a little longer. I think we can probably push this to the next meeting if that's the desire of council, or you can just tell me to go fly a kite and that's fine too.
It's quite likely. It's
If you want to give me that feedback now, I won't even put it back on, but I think there's a case to be made for it. That's my.
I'm willing to give City Manager Horn the opportunity to the pros and cons of a 1%. I would like to listen to it. Maybe put that on our next agenda. Good. All right, goes to the next agenda. Next is the city council comments. I start with Ward 4, Ms. Walker,
No comments, Mayor.
Mr. Wagner. Ward 3.
Since Mr. Horn commented that somebody else may be talking about Celebrate Solar.
Sorry.
There's a lot going on. So this coming Saturday, the 2 Rotarian, and I think all 3 Rotary groups are doing Pedal for Polio to raise money, and walking, running, biking to Petoskey Brewing. And they said you can go right to the brewery as well if you want to pay your $25. And after that, it's Celebrate Solar, and after that, it's the C.S. Lewis Festival. So it's going to be a busy Saturday.
Wow. Mr. Shields, Ward 2.
I wanted to make a comment about the complexity of the TIF process. And as I'm learning about this, I just want to share this with the public. So the idea of TIF is not that current taxpayer dollars are going to a project. It is the idea of this future money that we would be committing towards a project. So I just think that's an important nuance to try to wrap our heads around. When we think about this in the community, is that there's a development will provide future tax revenue. It's that future tax revenue that would help pay for that process, a project to happen. So that's a nuance there. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we as a community should lock in 20, 30, 40 years of future potential revenues. But I think it is important to address that nuance, that it is not current dollars that taxpayers have paid that would go to support a development project in a TIF. It is future money. And so in the process that I'm going through, I encourage any Ward 2 residents to contact me, send me an email, phone call, and set up a meeting. I'd love to get coffee or just sit in the park and talk through their questions and my questions as well.
Ward 1,
I
Mr. Moore.
have nothing this evening. Thank you.
Two things. I had the opportunity Sunday to attend a festivities for migrant workers in northern Michigan. I welcomed them from the city. I could not believe the number of migrant workers that we have here, which are individuals that are on a pass to come into this country, stay here for a few months, but then have to go back home to Mexico. There were over, I believe it was 100 to 120 of them. I think there were 70 that attended this luncheon. They all got soccer balls. They loved them. Shot some baskets with them. They had a great food, but it was a great celebration for them and by them. It was held at Genesis Church for the second time in a row, but this is the sixth time, and it rotates. And I didn't know about this, but I will make sure and let council know ahead of time when this is being held. I think it's a fantastic thing for the city to reach out to 80 people who come here from abroad, Mexico, come here and work in our everything that we have. So the other thing I wish to say is, once again, I apologize for screwing up and missing one person in the last 8 years, and I really do apologize. And if somebody wants it in writing, I will put my apology in writing as well, if that would make anybody feel better. Next, for City Council, we're going to go to adoption of a proposed resolution that would authorize to recess to a closed session pursuant to Section 8C of the Michigan Open Meetings Act to consider strategy and negotiations of a collective bargaining agreement. There will be nothing after we go and come back. All we will do is say goodnight and leave. So thank you for attending. Sorry for the length, but your city, no matter how we disagree or agree, your city is in good hands with this city council. We have different opinions, but that's great, because that means that, as I always say, Petoskey gets it right by going slow and getting it right. Have a good night. I need a motion.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Moore, second from Mr. Wagner. Would you please do roll, Sarah?
Demore. Aye. Wagner.
Yeah.
Shields.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
This is perhaps what I was in article in trying to describe. Those are my highlights.
But I don't.
Revisit the notes on that night because when I was there was an agreement reached on that.
I'll try to find out.
But it would be year round. You ask all the same questions that night.
I was.
So it's hazy memory, but yes, thank
You
you.
ask all the same, but the only reason.
Yeah, no, I would love to be.
Said it would be in the.
It sounds very good.
But if you look here, it's completely conflicting.
Yeah, there's Central American and, yeah.
This is yes, resolution. This can-
5 years.
Items forward, yeah,
it is.
this is year round, 3 units, 80%. And then the meaning two, of 2020.
Hmm.
Here it's 150, 80 to 20 for three, they're opposite. So that was my concern. Oh, you're not coming?
I don't do this.
What the heck? Jim?
No, sorry.
Okay, have a good night.
What we can do.
I have to use the bus for me before we go to this next, that's sure.
What is it? It's only, it's not 29, it's not really.
What? What time is it?
129.
Later than that.
view on the wall.
All those. All those people are not just done. I'm trying to put me up on the wall. I don't think I can just. When you're done, you're gonna buy a 50-year-old. My high school, we have to look something.
Turn it up from the back.
Oh, that'd be great. Two more. This for my turn.
Did you get the?
I'm working. There'll be no further business coming for this city council, meeting adjourned. Thank you all.